Hello everyone, I'm back with my next video on the poem The Enchanted Shirt by John Hay. Let us quickly read about the poem. The poem is a ballet and is divided into three parts, the three parts of the story. The first part deals with the king's illness and diagnosis thereof. The second part deals with the futile search for the prescribed remedy. And the third part deals with the solution, the realization that dawns upon the king, and he needs to wake up to reality and work hard to be happy. The poem could have been divided into three parts to make it more like a drama or a story with separate scenes and chapters. Now here is the poem. I'll keep reading the poem and will keep explaining it. Enjoy looking at the pictures and imagining how funny this whole poem is. So let us start. Part 1. The king was sick. His cheek was red and his eye was clear and bright. He ate and drank with kingly zest and peacefully snored at night. But he said he was sick, and a king should know. And doctors came by the score. They did not cure him. He cut off their heads and sent to the school for more. So it so happened that in a kingdom there was a king, and the king used to say that he was sick. His cheek was red, showing the signs of good health, and his eye was clear and bright. He ate and drank just like a king. Kingly zest. Zest means enthusiasm, happiness, excitement, and peacefully snored at night. And at night he had a very deep and sound sleep. Do you think by reading this extract that the king was actually sick? A sick person looks pale. His eyes are watery, doesn't want to drink and eat anything, cannot sleep the night. But here, everything opposite was happening. He said, the king said that he was a king and he knew that he was sick. So that was it. He was sick. And so now to cure him, to treat him, many doctors started coming to his palace. And if any one of them said that he was absolutely okay and there was no cure for him, he got his head cut off and he sent message for more doctors to come and treat him. At last, two famous doctors came, and one was as poor as a rat. He had passed his life in studious toil and never found time to grow fat. The other had never looked into a book. His patients gave him no trouble. If they recovered, they paid him well. If they died, their heirs paid double. So now, when the doctors came, at last two very famous doctors came to see what had happened to the king. One of the doctors was very poor. He was as poor as a rat. He had spent his whole life studying and working hard so that he becomes a good doctor. And so he had no time to grow fat. He spent all his life working hard. The other doctor had never looked into a book, and his patients also did not trouble him. If they recovered, if in case he gave them the right medicines and they recovered, they paid him very well. And if suppose they died, the people who were the heirs of the dead man, they paid him very well because they became very happy. Together they looked at the royal tongue as the king on his couch reclined. In succession they thumped his august chest, but no trace of disease could find. The old sage said, "You are as sound as a nut." "Hang him up," roared the king in a gale. In a 10-knot gale of royal rage, The other leech grew a shade of pale. So now what happened was that both the doctors, the famous doctors, looked at the king, his royal tongue. They tried to check as to what was the problem that the king was going through. One by one, both of them, in succession means one by one, they thumped his august chest. What is august? His broad chest, which looked very, very well built, and it was the king's chest, so it was a broad and kingly chest. And when they thumped the chest, till then also they did not find any disease in the king. So the poor old sage, the one who had spent all his life working hard, said that the king was as sound as a nut and there was no cure for him. The king became very, very angry and told his people to hang him up. In a 10-knot gale of royal rage, the king was so very angry. The other leech, here the leech is referred to the second doctor, he grew a shade of pale, means he grew serious on seeing the first doctor being hanged and started thinking as to what he should do. But he pensively rubbed his sagacious nose, and thus his prescription ran. King will be well if he sleeps one night in the shirt of a happy man. So after a lot of thinking, he writes the prescription, and in the prescription he writes that there's a problem in the king, and if he sleeps one night in the shirt of a happy man, he will become just all right. Let us do part 2. Wide over the realm the couriers rode, and fast their horses ran, and many they saw, and to many they spoke, but they found no happy man. So now the message was sent. The couriers, his messengers, the king's messengers, they quickly took their horses and rode all throughout their kingdom to find a happy man and to borrow a shirt for one night. But to their disappointment, they did not find any happy man. They found poor men who would fain be rich, and rich who thought they were poor, and men who twisted their waists in stays, and women that short hose wore. They saw two men by the roadside sit, and both bemoaned their lot. For one had buried his wife, he said, and the other one had not. So when the messengers went round the whole kingdom to find a happy man and to borrow his shirt for one night, they found men, some poor men who wanted to be rich, who pretended and wanted in fact to be rich, and there were some rich who thought they were still poor, they needed more and more. They also met men and women in dancing costumes and felt they were happy, but they realized they were not happy at all. They saw two men by the roadside sit. Both were very sad and they were mourning. One was mourning because his wife had just died and he had come back after the funeral, after burying her. And the other one was unhappy because he had not done the same. At last they came to a village gate. A beggar lay whistling there. He whistled and sang and laughed and rolled on the grass in the soft June air. The weary couriers paused and looked at the scamp so blithe and gay, and one of them said, "Heaven save you, friend. You seem to be happy today." So on coming to the village gate, these messengers saw a beggar who was lying over there, and he was whistling. He was whistling, he was singing, he was laughing and rolling. He was actually very happy and was enjoying the soft June air on the grass. These very, very tired and weary means tired messengers of the couriers of the king, they stopped there, they paused, and they kept looking at this man, at the scamp. Scamp is who? Scamp is the beggar that is mentioned here, who looked very, very bright and happy. And one of them said, Heaven save you, God bless you. Just let us know. You seem to be very happy today. Oh, yes, fair sirs, the rascal laughed, and his voice rang free and glad. An idle man has so much to do, and he never has time to be sad. This is our man, the courier said. Our luck has led us aright. I will give you 100 ducats, friend, for the loan of your shirt tonight. The merry blackguard lay back on the grass and laughed till his face was black. I would do it, God wot, and he roared with fun. But I haven't a shirt to my back. So it so happened that the messengers of the king, they reached the village gate and found there a beggar man who was very, very happy. He was rolling, whistling, laughing, and he was really enjoying his time. So these people stopped there to talk to him and asked that uh, they felt that he was happy. So he said yes, he was happy, and his voice, rang with happiness. And what did he say? He said that I am absolutely a free man. And a free man has got so much to do that he has no time to be sad. This is so ironical that a free man has so much to do. But he was so very happy because he had to whistle, he had to roll, he had to laugh. There were so many things that he was enjoying. The courier, that is the messenger, was happy and they said, okay, this is the man. And our luck has brought us to the right place. And then they went forward to talk to the beggar and offered him 100 ducats if he could give them his shirt for one night. The scamp or the beggar, he was a very happy person. He started laughing and laughing, and then he fell on the grass and he kept laughing till his face became black. And what did he say? He roared with fun and told them that he would definitely do it. He would give the shirt if ever he had a shirt on his back. That means this man did not have a shirt. Part 3. Each day to the king the reports came in of his unsuccessful spies, and the sad panorama of human woes passed daily under his eyes. And he grew ashamed of his useless life, and his maladies hatched in gloom. He opened his windows and let the air of the free heaven into his room. And out he went in the world and toiled in his own appointed way, and the people blessed him. The land was glad, and the king was well and gay. Part 3. So now the king came to know that there was no happy man in whole of his kingdom. He felt so very sad. In fact, all the messengers came and told about the sadness and the moments of sorrow and the reasons of sorrow of all the men of his kingdom. The king grew ashamed. He felt that his life was absolutely useless because he was doing nothing for his kingdom, for the happiness of the people of his kingdom. He felt very bad and he quickly stood up. He opened the windows of his room and let fresh air come in. And then he felt healthy and he went into the world, into his whole kingdom. He worked hard in his own chosen way. And he worked so much for the happiness of his people, of his kingdom, that the people started blessing him. His whole kingdom was happy. And then the king also became happy and gay. So actually, the duty of the king is to work for the welfare of his people. He should talk to the people of his kingdom, should know their problems, should try to solve their problems. The king should be dutiful. He should shoulder the responsibilities of all the people of his kingdom. Let us quickly see the question and answers. Question 1. Pick out elements of humor from the poem. The poem opens with the line, "The king was sick," and then goes on to describe how the king looked healthy, ate healthy, and slept peacefully at night. This is really funny. Humor means elements of something funny. The description of the two doctors who came in to check on the king is also given a touch of humor. The first one was poor and had spent his entire life in studies, so much so that he had not found the time to grow fat. The second one had never studied, but was sure of collecting his hefty fees either from the patient if they recovered, or else from the heirs if they passed away. The irony that though the beggar was extremely happy he did not have a shirt also generates humor in the poem. The poem brings out some very important lessons through many such humorous lines. Question 2. What happened to the doctors who told the king that he was hale and healthy? The doctors who told the king that he was hale and healthy were beheaded. That means their heads were cut off. Question 3. Do you think the old sage was not clever enough? The answer is, the old sage was sound in his knowledge. He was right in telling the king that he was perfectly well. However, he was not clever enough to know how to save himself because he gave the king a reply that ultimately caused his execution. Question 4. Why was the beggar a happy man? Which words describe his happiness? The beggar was a happy man because he was idle. He had nothing to do and nowhere to be. He had no care in the world. He was content and satisfied with his state. The words that describe his happiness are whistled, sang, laughed, rolled, blithe, gay, free, glad, and merry. What does the poem convey to us? The poem conveys the message that in order to be truly happy, we must work hard and be helpful to others. One can find true happiness only by making others happy. Now let us do the reference to context questions. First extract. I'll quickly read and then we'll move on to the questions. The king was sick, his cheek was red and his eye was clear and bright. He ate and drank with a kingly zest and peacefully snored at night. But he said he was sick, and a king should know. The doctors came by the score. They did not cure him. He cut off their heads and sent to the school for more. Question A. Was the king sick? The answer is no, the king was not sick. Question B. He thought that he was sick because he was a king and a king should know. So the question was, what made him think that he was sick? Question C. Why were the doctors not able to cure him? The answer is, the doctors were not able to cure him because he was not actually ill and hence did not require to be cured or did not require any treatment. Extract 2. At last, two famous doctors came, and one was as poor as a rat. He had passed his life in studious toil and never found time to grow fat. The other had never looked into a book. His patients gave him no trouble. If they recovered, they paid him well, and if they died, their heirs paid double. Question A. Why did the doctors come? The doctors came to diagnose the king's illness and cure him of it. Question B. How different were the two doctors? Answer is, the two doctors were very different. One was poor but had studied hard and had become a doctor, whereas the other had never studied but was able to make good money from his patients. Why did the heirs of the patients who died pay the second doctor double? Very often the greedy heir waits for his father or benefactor to die so that he can begin to possess and enjoy the wealth bequeathed to him. Therefore, if one of the patients died, their heirs who came upon their money would, out of gratitude, pay the doctor double his fees for helping them to get rid of the patient. Extract 3. The old sage said, "You are as sound as a nut." "Hang him up," roared the king in a gale, in a 10-knot gale of royal rage. The other leech grew a shade of pale, but he pensively rubbed his sagacious nose, and thus his prescription ran, "King will be well if he sleeps one night in the shirt of a happy man." Question A. Why did the king roar in a gale? The king roared in a gale because he did not like to be told that he was perfectly well. He thought that he was unwell and wanted to be cured of his illness. Question B. Who is referred to as the other leech in the poem? The answer is the second doctor is referred to as the other leech in the poem. Question C. What remedy did he prescribe for the king's recovery? For the king's recovery, the second doctor prescribed that he should sleep for one night wearing the shirt of a happy man. Extract 4. And he grew ashamed of his useless life, and his maladies hatched his gloom. He opened his windows and let the air of the free heaven into his room. And he went in the world and toiled in his own appointed way, and the people blessed him, and land was glad, and the king was well and gay. Question A. Who was ashamed of his useless life? The answer is the king was ashamed of his useless life. Question B. What is his illness? The answer is his illness was that he led a useless life, closeted with reality, and shut out all the happiness in his life. He was bereft of the happiness that he could have received from helping his subjects, that is, people of his kingdom. Question C. After he realized his mistake, what did he do? The answer is, after the king realized his mistake, he opened the windows to allow the fresh air into his room, and then went out into the world and worked hard, thus making himself and others happy. There is just one extra question. Pick out all the rhyming pairs of the words from the poem. Let us quickly read the rhyming words. The rhyming words in the poem are bright night, score more, rat fat, trouble double, reclined, find, gale, pale, ran, man, lot, not, there, air, gay, today, glad, sad, aright, tonight, black, back, spice, eyes, gloom, room, and way, gay. I hope everyone has understood the poem and all the question and answers. In case you face any problem, please write it in the comment section. Do take good care of yourself. Help anyone who is in need.